So welcome to the last day of the 12 days of enrichment feeding. Today I'm going to do a little bit more of a special one. So this involves one of my favourite forms of enrichment feeding and something that I do in my cage every day, and that is digging and digging boxes. But what I'm doing today is also showing you that whilst a lot of what I've done so far is focused on feeding in the cage, and I think there'll be another one. I'm filming this a little bit earlier because Mog's going to be giving birth around the time of the last day, so I want her to be able to be enjoying this one. So whilst I will do another one that's kind of free range based, this is all about, you can do enrichment feeding at any point. You can do it in play, you can do it in the cage. You do have to be sensible and not feed them too much because you don't want fat rats, but you do want active, happy, enjoyed rats. And doing it in kind of free range area is great too. So what I've got today, and I've actually prepped this one a little bit before rather than my usual. I've got a selection of different digging box fillings, and I've also got a box here that's just to demonstrate that you don't have to have fancy plastic boxes to do digging boxes. This is just the latest Amazon order for the girls. I think they've got some more ingredients for their food mix, and I'm just going to turn this into a bit of a digging box as well for free range. So what we've got here, this is just, like I say, simple box. I want to make it a little bit taller because it's quite shallow really, and I want them to be able to dig properly. So all I'm going to do is tape the sides up using trusty duct tape. Again, nothing fancy, it just has to hold itself. The rats will be standing on it, so it'll be under some weight, but duct tape's pretty strong, so I'm not worried about that. I'll just do the back two corners. So what I've got here is lots of different fillings. So the thing that I use in the cage all the time is the kind of main thing that I use in digging boxes, and I think is excellent. It's the closest you can get to kind of proper digging, is a kind of soil. So it's also quite heavy because there's quite a lot of water on here. This is cocoa fibre soil, which is great. I've literally just made this up today. What I will do is I'll stick a photo up of the kind of block that I've made it from. Then all I do with the block is I put it in a tub. This is a show tank, very, very stylish. Just a convenient tub that I've got around at the moment. You put it in there and you let it soak with plenty of water. Keep topping it off if it looks a little bit dry until you get this kind of like earthy substrate. At some point you'll have to kind of break it up, but it should expand to fill quite a significant volume. So one brick has filled this tank quite substantially, and it could probably take a little bit more water, to be honest, but it's not bad. So I use this in my digging box in the cage, which is substantially larger and large enough that they can create tunnels in it, but they do absolutely love it. You can use compost, but just make sure that it's organic, so it's not got any kind of nasty chemicals in it, and see how they're going like that, and kind of buy it. I wouldn't just use it straight out of the garden unless you really know what's been around there, because there could be wild rats and all sorts digging in it. Other things you can put in digging boxes. This is just their substrate. It might seem a little bit silly, but actually offering a deeper layer of substrate will let them do much more natural foraging. So once you sprinkle food into this, they'll be able to dig down a lot more. And if you've got a decent fibrous substrate, it will hold together to a degree. It's not going to make as good tunnels as this, but it's still going to be great fun for them. And you can offer it on free range as well. What else we have here? We have a tub full of hay. This is kind of great enrichment. They can form tunnels quite easily in this. It doesn't hold much weight, so the tunnels are very much temporary, but it's also great for nesting and such. I've mentioned before on some of my videos, but make sure it's decent quality, dust-free hay, and they will get on great with it. So next that I've got here, so this is a mixture of two different things. There's some offcuts of fleece from one of my friends that has a hammock making business, Cozy Beds and Burrows. If you want to check them out, they are very good. And I've also got strips of card, which I often use as nesting materials and substrate for my mums. I use card quite a lot for them. And either one on their own sits a bit flat for a digging box, but mix the two together and it gets a lot more poofy and kind of has different textures for them to play with, which is great. I will say, if you plan to use this in cage, I did use it once and my boys decided to turn it into a massive nest box and toilet. It stank. Now I'm not saying everybody's rats are going to be quite as unclean as my boys at the time were, but I probably wouldn't do it again inside the cage. But outside the cage is great fun for them. And you can throw all sorts. It doesn't just have to be material. You can stick some hay in here, you can stick some substrate in here, you can stick some cardboard tubes, etc. in there, and they will still enjoy it absolutely loads. Notice the ones that are messy are sat in an Alaska base so that they don't kick stuff up all over the place, and I've got it handy at the moment. Right, so onto our big cardboard box. So what am I going to put in there? This time of year, and stuff that I've used heavily already. So for a start, Amazon kindly put some packaging material in there that's okay for them already. And I've just got a shed load of random bits of paper that I've torn up already that I'm going to put in there. I've also got this tube. You could use a Pringles tub. This is a little bit more expensive than Pringles. I quite like Pause. But it's also a great size. I just cut the end off and then it's made a kind of great little tube. So I'm going to add a bit more paper on top of that. And that's a great little kind of digging box. Now, to encourage them to get started, I've got a little bit of the dry mix here. I'm just going to put a little bit in each of the boxes and then I will release them. They're all currently sat in the world's tiniest carrier, so it's quite a small carrier for 7 rats. So they'll explode when I do let them out, I'm sure. So I'm not going to add much to each of them, but it's just enough to give them something to do, something to add. In the cage, I will regularly scatter probably about half their mix in their digging box, and they've got a deep layer of substrate in them, a normal cage, so they can really get down to foraging in that. Right, there we go. All sorted. Let's see what the girls make of it. Now they're all going to be all shy because I've just woke them up and they're not really sure what's happening. I'll release some into an appropriate area. Come on, girls. Right, we're starting to have explosions. Now you'd think after all that fuss. There. Hey, Mug. Here's a pregnant mug belly. Go on. Yeah, she's not too many days off, so. Right, so straight away we can see the girls are having a bit of a sniff around. This is quite a nice thing to do occasionally, actually. Gives them lots of different variety and options to explore. And it'll be interesting to see which they end up spending more time in. I'll give them a little while like this, then I'll probably pause it and then try and take another video afterwards, just to see once they've settled down and done the cursory explore of the area, what kind of filling that they're most interested in. Bearing in mind that these two are in the cage permanently. There's actually usually hay in there. This is very rarely in the cage, and actually the paper is also very rarely in the cage, but it also makes much more noise than they're used to as well, so we shall see. Currently they seem to be taking it in turns to explore most of them, but they haven't yet figured out that this taller box also contains interesting. The Mog's having a bit of a sniff. We shall see. She's probably the most food motivated of the lot. In fact, she's tucking into some dinner now. Aren't you, Missy? But yes, you can see that they're really enjoying smelling the different things and actually climbing in and out. This is actually one thing that I do to get the girls used to show tanks as well. I'll quite often have them set out on free range as digging boxes, and it gets them used to them before they have to go and sit in them at a show. We can see that Luna is already getting a little bit muddy at the digging box end. Oh, and we have the first person exploring the big digging box. I'll walk you over a little bit here so you can have a bit of a sneak peek inside. Very simple, very cheap, and yet they absolutely love it. And anybody can make a paper digging box for free range. You can put it in the cage as well, they will pee on it and such, but that's absolutely fine. You having fun, girls? Oh, we have... Are you trapped, Ellie? Nope. And we're out. Right, we could watch them forever, but we're getting past the 10-minute mark, so I'm going to pause it for now, and I will report back to say which ones they ended up enjoying most. See you for now, and I hope you've enjoyed this 12 days of enrichment feeding. I've enjoyed doing it, and actually I think the girls have really enjoyed doing it too. I would stay tuned. I will probably do similar things like this in the future. I just have to think of a good reason and a good topic to do it on, and I'm open to suggestions as well. But over and out from me and the girls, and hopefully we shall be having some good news shortly after this video airs on Mog and her little ones. But I have learnt one thing, is don't count your kittens before they've been born. So as long as Mog's okay, it'll be good. Bye for now. So I said I'd report back on what the girls' preferences were on this. It's been really interesting actually. They've shown a clear preference for having a choice, if that makes sense. So they've spent a bit of time, and everybody's done this in every single one of the tubs. So they're likely to find 1 or 2 bits of food in one tub, and then they'll kind of move on to the next tub and find another couple bits of food here, then move on to another, and so on. I would say the ones they've spent the most time in is the earth one, which they're very used to digging in, and they do love digging in that. The hay, so they've had great fun in the hay. Which surprised me actually, because they do normally have hay around the cage, but to be fair, I've never put it in a digging box for them before. And then the big deep box with all the rustly papers in. It's a bit harder for them to find stuff, but they like making a lot of noise and kind of the destruction element of it, I think. But like I said, they've spent time in everything there. Probably the least favourite is this one, which Potato's currently modelling quite happily. But they've still spent time in it, and I think that's one of the things. It just emphasises how in all this enrichment feeding thing, it's not just about offering them a challenge, it's also about offering them a choice, so that we're not just saying that you must do it in this particular way. We're giving them a choice of what ways they want to eat in. So when I put something in some little paper bags, like I've done in the past, or in an egg box piñata and such, I'm also putting other things around that are in a different way. So they might spend a little bit on the puzzling element, they might spend a little bit on the easy scatter feeding, and so on. It's very much about giving them choice, and I think that's one of the real keys above all else for enrichment, is give them choice. Give them ways that they could choose to live their life and enjoy it how they see fit, and they will really be very happy. You can just see them, they're still going very happily. There wasn't that much food out, but they're still very happily going from tub to tub, having a bit of fun, finding that odd little grain that's left over, and generally having a real whale of a time. So over and out, and I'm hopeful I will catch you in my next videos. Bye for now.